Okay. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Union, which is being held pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law, C-231, Laws of New Jersey, dated 1975. Notice of this meeting has been posted in the local source, in the newspaper of record, and notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Ms. Martins is absent. Mr. Bentavegana is absent. Ms. Scott.
Here.
Mr. McNeil is absent. Ms. Little.
Here.
Mr. Graves.
Here.
Ms. Ricketts.
Here.
And Mr. Champy.
Here. There being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from our January 28th meeting. May I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the meeting minutes of January 28, 2026 be approved as written and dispense with their reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Are there any communications?
There are no communications.
Hearing none, we'll continue with tonight's meeting. Our first order of business this evening will be the adoption of a resolution for Addernis Construction LLC, calendar number 3464. Location is 20 Windsor Avenue, Block 4803, Lot 24. Applicant wishes to construct a two-family dwelling with insufficient setbacks and lot depth. At this time, you've all had a chance to read the resolution. Are there any board members that would like to make changes, comments, or modifications to this resolution as it has been written? Hearing none, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board adopt the resolution as written and as accurately memorialized in the previous findings of this board.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes.
Ms. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Champy.
Yes. Our next order of business this evening is calendar number 3463, CRF Development LLC. Location is 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue, Block 2210, Lot 41. Applicant wishes to construct a three-story, I believe now it's a 12-unit residential building.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Counselor, would you like to begin?
Yes, please. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, professionals. Attorney Rosemary Stone Dougherty with the law firm of A.Y. Strauss, here tonight on behalf of the applicant, CRF Development LLC. We're here tonight on the property located at 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue, also known as Block 2210, Lot 41, located in the DT Downtown Transition Zone. Just to give the board a quick little summary and a roadmap of our planned presentation here this evening. As the board members are probably aware from the application packet that I submitted, originally we had an application for a mixed-use property that did have one hearing in front of the planning board back on April 24th, 2025. That mixed-use building had been 14 residential units, 10 one-bedroom/studio, 4 two-bedroom, and over 1,000 square feet of retail space located on the first floor, which is encouraged under the DT transition zone. However, at that meeting, there were also some bulk variances that were required, with being over on building coverage, being over on impervious coverage, and also being short on parking, as well as waivers for parking as to the width of the parking spaces being 8 feet instead of 9 feet, tandem parking proposed, and also only having a 1-foot buffer, which exists today, from the adjacent residential property. However, at that meeting, there were several members of the public that were in attendance. We carried that meeting. Since then, since Again, April of 2025, almost a little under a year, there have been several meetings with several of the residents, particularly the residents that are immediately adjacent and closest to the property, as well as several other members along Marianne Way, who all expressed serious concerns about having any retail use in any building, even though it is permitted under the DT zone. So with that being said, we went back to the planning board, literally, right, not to the planning board, and we went back and we looked at what can we do to make this project better, and that's through conversations and revisions and changes based on review letters and comments that we have received. We're coming to your board now asking for a D1 use variance because now we are purely a residential building. We do only have one unit located on the first floor that was done strategically to comply with ADA. Otherwise, the first floor is amenity space. And we've eliminated the variances with exception of impervious coverage, which you'll hear in the engineer's testimony why we're slightly over on impervious coverage. We reduced it from 6.9 to 5.2 over. We eliminated all tandem parking spots. We reduced the number of residential units, completely eliminated the retail, reduced the building footprint to make it comply. And again, we also moved the parking spaces that are currently 1 foot away from the adjacent neighbor to now 5.3 feet away. We added a no right turn exiting the property at the request of the neighbors who live on Marianne Way, who don't want any accidental traffic coming down their cul-de-sac. We eliminated the ingress-egress off Stuyvesant. We're putting another very valuable on-street parking space back onto Stuyvesant, and we really bolstered up the landscaping plan significantly. And we also understand there's a current streetscape design ordinance that's pending, which you'll hear in testimony tonight that the applicant would fully comply with if the board were to grant approval. With that being said, that's just a quick rundown. I have with me tonight 3 professionals. I have Mr. Giovanni Manillo. He is our engineer from Mantera Design. I plan on calling him first to give an overlay of the site. Then we have Mr. Paulo Dantas of Dantas Carteret. He is our architect, and he will discuss the building plan. And then lastly, we have Alexander Dougherty, who is our professional planner, who will hopefully tie this all together, assuming how we proceed tonight. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call our first professional. I don't know if you prefer to swear them in one at a time or all
Yeah,
at
I'll
the same
swear him in.
time?
This is Rob Pansoul, the board attorney. For the record, I did mark the materials, and I know we had an original app, but what I did is mark the amendments as they came in. So A1 is the amended application as it was submitted. A2 is the one-page survey. A3 is the revised site plan, which was revised through January of 2026. That consists of 7 sheets, so the current site plan is marked A3. A4 are the architectural plans, which consist of 5 sheets. They also were revised through January 7th of 2026. A5 is the stormwater detention calculations. A6 is the sanitary sewer assessment. And A7 is the environmental impact statement, which had revisions as well through June of 2025. So we have A1 through A7 marked. As part of the record, can I ask the witness to swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
And for the record, could you state and spell your name with your affiliation?
Sure. Name is Giovanni, Giovanni. Last name Manilio, Manilio. Civil engineer and owner of Mantera Design, the engineer for the project.
Thank you.
Mr. Manillo, all your credentials and licenses are up to date. I know you've been before this board.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll accept his credentials.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Manillo, just by way of background, you've had the opportunity to visit the site in question on numerous occasions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you prepared the plan that was already marked by board council as A3,
That is correct.
and that's what you're showing up on the screen right now, correct?
Yeah. Yes, and we do have 2 exhibits that I'm going to introduce tonight as well. If you want me to introduce them now, or wait until we begin the testimony.
I would say let's just wait till you get to testimony unless board council would prefer to mark them now.
No, we'll cross the bridge as we come to it.
Okay, thank you.
We can get to the first one now.
Okay, well, why don't we start with, why don't you give an overview
Sure.
of what exists on the property today?
So yeah, I'm going to go to my first exhibit, which is entitled 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue, aerial exhibit with a date of
A8.
slow, a date of January 28, 2026. So it's a general aerial of the vicinity of the site. The site is highlighted in yellow, as seen in the middle of the screen, with the zoning shown as well in the surrounding area. So as mentioned earlier, it's known as 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue, block 2210, lot 41, which is located in DT, downtown transition zone, as you can see here. So that's this whole entire area right here, where my cursor is the DT zone. To the north, you have the NC, the neighborhood zone, and to the south, you have the DC zone. And then on either side of that DT zone, you have the RA, which is the residential zone. As you can see, the lot is surrounded by both residential and commercial uses. The site itself is slightly trapezoidal. It's not a perfect rectangle. It has a lot area of 12,652 square feet, or about 0.3 acres. So currently on the site was the old Weichert building. So as you can see here, that was a 2.5-story building for a real estate agent. There was and there still is, a parking lot in the rear for 15 parking spaces. The house itself, so if you know the site kind of slopes up to where the building is, and the building is actually on the highest part of the property. As I get into my testimony, you'll see that the new building will be lowering the grade along that area and dropping that grade. So for the neighbors, it's actually going to be a little lower. Currently, there is a couple of pre-existing nonconformities, one being the lot width of the site, and other is the design exceptions for being too close to the property lines. Currently, it's about, actually, I think it's 0 feet from the property line for the parking and driveways. Next exhibit I'm going to introduce is entitled 1307 Stuyvesant Avenue, site rendering with a date of January 28, 2026. So this is essentially the site plan that was submitted, colored, so it's a little easier to follow what's being proposed, and it also shows the landscape as well.
So hold on 1 minute, Mr. Manillo.
A9 for the record.
So what's being proposed is a 3-story multifamily building with a total of 12 residential units, consisting of 7 one-bedroom units and 5 2-bedroom units. The dark brown represents the building, or the main floor of the building. As you can see, it's close to Stuyvesant Avenue and Marianne Way as far as setbacks concerned, but that does comply with the setback requirements. And hard to see here, but the light blue actually represents the overhang of the upper, second, and third stories as well. The existing driveway that was on Stuyvesant will be closed up, which will result in one additional space that's available on Stuyvesant Avenue for parallel parking. We didn't take it into account when we did our parking analysis on the zoning table, but there is one additional parking space that is going to be resulted by that. So the way that the site worked now, that entrance off of Stuyvesant was a one-way in, and then on Marianne Way was a two-way driveway, an ingress and egress. And essentially, we're getting rid of that Stuyvesant Avenue driveway, but keeping the Marianne Way one, and shifting it over a couple feet. So it's essentially in the same location, but moving a couple feet to better fit the site and the layout of the parking lot. As mentioned earlier, we are going to have a sign at the driveway of Marianne Way saying no right turn, so it's going to make sure that all traveling public goes to the left. The good thing about this is it's not a commercial or retail site. It's an apartment or multifamily site. So all the residents know the area once they move in. So they're going to know not to make a right onto Marianne Way because they're not going to be able to get out that way. If this was retail and the customer came in, sometimes they'll make that right, and it would be an issue for the residents. But again, these are people that know the location. They're going to come in and out as normal, as a routine for them.
And Mr. Manillo, before you switch the page, can you move up on the exhibit to show the portion of the building along the Stuyvesant Avenue elevation?
Correct, so that's this area too, and that's well landscaped along that frontage. And also I mentioned earlier, not shown on this exhibit, there is plans for a streetscape improvement along this portion of Stuyvesant, and the applicant has no issues complying with that and making sure that that streetscape is implemented as part of this project.
Okay, and Mr. Minow, also, one of the variances we have is on impervious coverage, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and with the trapezoidal design of the site, it made it a little bit challenging as far as how the building and the parking would lay out, correct?
Correct. The parking wants to be rectangular to fit parking, and a building essentially would like to be rectangular as well. It's the most efficient way to lay out a building. But just being on Stuyvesant, the whole point of being in the DT zone is to have a good frontage along the main thoroughfare over there. So that's what the architect did, and they utilized that by having the building all along the frontage, so that it essentially becomes a downtown type of building.
Okay.
And that it obviously generates a little more impervious as it's not as efficient as a rectangle.
Now, I just want to touch on this one variance with you, and then we'll hear it again with the architect and the planner. There was a look at possibly trimming the front of the building, correct, and not have it follow Stuyvesant, which would have eliminated the impervious coverage requirement, correct?
That is correct.
And it really wouldn't have changed number of units or any counts, because as you'll hear with the architect's testimony, these are actually pretty large size units, correct?
That is correct.
So can you kind of show the board with your mouse, like what we were talking about cutting off on the building, and why it was the opinion of the team to leave that to follow the streetscape?
Again, so this corner or this triangle portion of the building could be eliminated to make way for the overage on the impervious coverage. But again, as you can see, even the neighboring property, they're all along and parallel to the front property line. Again, it made more sense for our property to do the same. I also do want to note, we didn't get to the stormwater yet, but we do have a stormwater system as part of this project that's actually, per Mr. Denave's review, it's actually oversized per the town ordinance. So even though we're over on impervious, we have an oversized stormwater system that will capture any increase in impervious.
Okay, but just going back for a moment on the streetscape, that is the streetscape when you designed the layout to have the building follow not only the property adjacent to us, but also further down as far as how they front along Stuyvesant and how they follow the street, correct?
Correct, and you can see it here, how all these properties have the same parallel. And even the Weicker building itself has a parallel, it's just set back a little further.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, I don't like to jump in, Rosemary, but we're going forward with what amounts to an amended site plan, as it were, based on the history that your attorney gave from the planning board time to the original submission here, and now we're here with an amended submission here. Can you just spend a moment addressing what exists on the site and how it relates to what you're looking to change it to? Because it seems to me that that's relevant for the board to consider, especially in the D1 context. So I think it should be started with the notion of what is there by way of a structure and how it compares to what it is you're proposing to do.
Sure, so I think I did touch on what's there, or what was there was a 2.5-story Weicker, was the old Weicker building. So I'll break it down a little bit further, and I have the existing conditions of the site plans that were submitted. So shown here where my cursor is the 2.5-story building. Like I mentioned earlier, as the way that this site grades from the corner of Stuyvesant and Marianne, it actually grades up to where the building is, so the building is elevated compared to Stuyvesant. And then there's an existing driveway, ingress only, off of Stuyvesant, shown here where my cursor is. And the driveway goes around the building, and then there's a parking lot, in the rear of, with 15 parking spaces. And then as you get to Marianne Way, that's an ingress and egress driveway. So you have essentially the same size of, actually maybe a little larger parking lot. You can see on the right, in comparison, what the parking lot is compared to what's out there today. And then the building itself is going to occupy this portion of the property, which is the front portion along Stuyvesant.
But that ties into some of the expansion of the impervious area, correct, from what exists there now to what you're proposing to do?
Correct, and you can
Okay.
see here the existing parking lot touches the property line to the neighbor to the east, and in our new design.
No, I understand you referenced it, but that to me, I think, is important for the board who's familiar with the site, but the context of what exists now to what you're proposing to do, it adds to the facts as it relates to the impervious coverage tied into your D1 variance. So that's what I wanted to make sure was clear in the record. Thanks.
You're welcome. So just going back to A9, which is the site rendering. The architect will go in a little more detail about what's being proposed in the building, but I do want to just touch on a couple items as it relates to the site. I'll zoom in a little bit. So as mentioned, we do have one apartment on the ground floor, which will be ADA accessible. Showing here where my cursor is. We do have a lobby and amenity space located in the middle of the building. There'll be both entrances from the rear parking lot and also access from Stuyvesant to allow the residents to walk that corridor as well, a little more easier. We do have space for a management office, and then in the rear is the refuse area, which is located inside the building. And during trash pickup and recycling pickup, those will be wheeled out and picked up by the private hauler and then brought back in by property maintenance as well. As mentioned earlier, the driveway is going to be closed along Stuyvesant, adding one more parking spot. We are proposing in the rear 18 physical parking spaces, so 3 more than what's existing out there today. And of those 18 parking spaces, one of them will be ADA, compliant with the handicap requirements for ADA parking spaces. And we are proposing 3 EV parking spaces, again, which comply with the requirements from the state mandated ordinance for EV. And the way that works is you have to make them, actually you have to install 1 spot at the time of CO, 1 additional spot within 3 years of your CO, and then the 3rd spot has to be installed within 6 years of your CO. So you have to make sure that they're equipped, they have the conduit and have the capacity to have an EV charger placed in those spaces. And some of the, obviously, nobody here was at the planning board meeting, but some of the concerns we have from the fire official on the planning board was originally the EV was underneath the canopy of the upper floors. So this new plan, we eliminated that. So all the EV parking spaces have open air above them. They're not underneath the building for fire issues or fire concerns. So the way that the state actually has a mandate as far as how many EV parking spaces are required for a site, they also provide you a credit. So by planting or placing an EV parking space, you get a 2-for-1 credit on those parking spaces, up to 10% of the parking spaces. So essentially, even though we have 18 physical parking spaces, per the state code, we actually provide 20 parking spaces for this facility. I know there was actually some, I think, might have been a comment from the board engineer about number of parking spaces required, saying that 22 parking spaces are required per the town ordinance. So I'm not sure if it's actually required. If you read the ordinance, there is an exception in there. It says, except as otherwise provided in this chapter for all new buildings or uses or additions to existing buildings or uses in all zone districts, except downtown core and downtown transition district, as described herein, there shall be provided a number of parking spaces required for the specific use. So the way that's read is that, or at least I interpret it, is that it's required for the all the zones except for the downtown core and downtown transition district. We are in the downtown transition district, so we believe that the parking requirements in the minimum or in the town code doesn't apply here. They also state RSIS is another way of calculating parking. So if you read RSIS, again, RSIS doesn't say how many parking spaces you need. It tells you how many maximum parking spaces can be requested by a board or by a municipality. That calculation, like I said, it actually comes out to, I believe, 21.5. So if you take RSIS or the town code, we will be short 1.5 spaces. But again, I don't believe it's a variance the way that the code is written. And if we want to go into a little more detail, and if the board has concerns about the parking, we could go into a little more detail. Our office also did do a parking study. So we did walk Stuyvesant along that downtown transition area. And we did do a parking count to see how many available parking spaces are there during the PM peak hours and weekends when the parking would be utilized the most by the residents.
When you say your office did a parking analysis, are you the witness who is going to support that data?
Yes.
Because I didn't mark anything by way of a parking analysis. And, you know, the Collier's report is clear about what it's saying. You're explaining it, but the way it's written, at least as to me as the lawyer, and I have to educate the board on this, suggests that there's a deficiency on what's expected there by way of parking, correct? 22 is what they're looking for, 20 is what you have.
That's what I think Mr. Denave wrote, but I don't know if that's the way the ordinance is written as far as the downtown transition area.
Did you follow up at all with him since the issuance of the report to try to get an idea of why he feels that it's non-compliant, and you're saying that it should be compliant or deemed compliant?
No.
I mean, that's a problem, as you can imagine.
Yep, no, I haven't reached out to Mr. Denave on that.
Well,
So
But
I guess-
just for clarity of record, Mr. Denavi actually did not write the report. Your team has had several conversations with Mr. Denavi going back from the planning board to now.
Correct.
The report was actually issued by.
Joe Venezia.
Right, and
So-
so there has not been any communication with Mr. Venezia. It's all been with Mr. Denavi, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
No, but I raise it as a concern because you're kind of glossed over. You offered an explanation, I'll grant you that. But the board is driven by its professionals, at least in the first instance for sure. And right now, the way it's teed up is, I think Colliers is wrong, therefore you should allow us to do what I'm saying and not what they're saying. That's a problem, as I said.
Yeah,
I
so
think I need some clarity from Colliers, if nothing else, to try to address that discrepancy.
No
The
problem.
EV calculations notwithstanding, it seems to me there's a shortage of two, giving you the credit, right? That's fair to say?
Correct, and I can give you additional testimony, like I said, as far as the parking study that we did do along that corridor as well.
Well, I do think we should add that testimony, because the way I read the memo that was provided, it actually says in bold, testimony should be provided clarifying same, which is what we're trying to do at this point, board council, as far as, why it is our position that it is not a variance under the DT zone. We can certainly, he read the section of the ordinance on the record, and we'll go through the parking counts and parking study analysis that was done.
By someone else, though, correct? Not you?
No,
he said it was
our
in-
office did the parking study.
Oh, it was you?
Yes.
Okay. But we haven't submitted the data, right? We don't have that
Correct, we
information.
did not submit the data.
I mean, I would suggest that leaping to other stages of the engineering testimony before we have that issue squared away almost seems like a fault that we would approach it that way, because it's in bold and it's highlighted and it's a variance that we're kind of juggling, as it were, and we're looking to move on, and I don't know how we could. I mean, I'm not clear as I sit whether Colliers is right or your engineer is right, but I think this board needs clarity on that issue. I don't know the best way to consider that at this point, but
I mean, in all due respect, council, we had many discussions with Mr. Denavi after the planning board. There was a similar comment in his previous review letter in front of the planning board, and it was our understanding that the DT transition zone doesn't have an actual requirement. It has suggested recommendations that are applicable to other zones when you read the way the ordinance is. But we could certainly, ask them to do a follow-up memo or report.
well, I mean, I appreciate your explanation, but the thing that's lacking is any continuity with this board. You're mentioning the planning board, and you're mentioning conversations that your professionals had with our professionals. I, as the board attorney, and this board has a void to fill, and tonight we're starting a hearing with this huge void that you could fall into, in my opinion, and I don't know how.
No, understood, and I mean, it is a little disappointing that the board engineer couldn't be with us this evening, because that was.
Yeah, he attends the planning board meetings. He does not attend here unless we need him, or if it was alerted to have him subpoenaed,
Which is what he
we could do
indicated
that,
to us. Right, so,
I mean, it's rare that we do that because normally we don't deviate. I mean, because this is the zoning board and not the planning board, and this board considers D1 use variance, the significance of which you understand, this board certainly understands it. It's hard to gloss over in mine, and I'm not suggesting that the engineer was flip or anything, believe me. I'm reacting because I'm hearing it for the first time.
no, understood, and part of the conversation that I had with Mr. Denavi is that if he feels he needs to attend, he also reaches out to the board as well.
I think what has to happen is we need a supplement to nip this issue in the bud now from Colliers. You mentioned Vince. I don't know if Vince works with Joe Benicia.
Yes, he works with.
Maybe they're in agreement with your professionals ultimately. I heard what he read, but I can't overlook until I research it further and deal with it with Colliers of why they're so adamant and bold to suggest that they're not in agreement, that there's a deficiency for the required parking by 2. Which I do know, and it's not so much this board, but the planning board has a number of major residential projects going on in and around the downtown area. And one of the things that are being highlighted townwide is analysis of traffic, parking, congestion. So it's a very relevant topic and one that I can't gloss over and sit here and suggest that this board would even be wise to consider glossing over it in a D1 context. That's my reaction to what I've heard so far. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I know it's your witness, but
No, understood.
I think it's a hurdle.
I mean, at this point in time, council, I mean, if we have to argue in the alternative, we could request the variance for parking.
Well, I mean, I can't see how you cannot, and that's my concern. So that's another variance that you're seeking in the D1 context with the coverage.
Right, with the.
And with the
impervious
width,
coverage and the parking.
And the width is pre-existing, I get it, but a pre-existing deficiency of a width still is factored in by this board in the D1 context. I mean, if the site isn't wide enough to contain what you're proposing to do, then in my history and opinion, maybe this site isn't suitable for what you're looking to do. I mean, it's not simply, it's not wide enough, everyone suffers from that deficiency. Well, not when you're putting 12 units on it. Maybe you don't put 12 units, and the impact from that width deficiency becomes less of an issue. I mean, I'm just talking out loud, but that's
No,
why I
and
think it's
and
important.
I understand, and I mean, obviously, we haven't gotten to the point where we've had our professional planner testify.
Understood.
And provide his opinion as a planner in that aspect, and. I'm so sorry.
You're speaking to,
Oh, you
Just-
got to get closer, Rosemary.
Sorry.
speak to
I
the
thought it
mic.
was me. I
Sorry.
was going to say, I'm trying not to zone you
I
out.
didn't see anybody back there, I'm so sorry. Now I can't see your, sorry, I'm trying not to be rude.
You could take it off it comes off.
No, I heard.
Is what I was going to say is, in regards to the width, I understand that the board, obviously under a D1 use variance, is going to factor all of the conditions in the application as a whole. It's their duty as a board to do that. Certainly, when you look at things about width, there's other things too that can trigger concerns, like if there's side yard setbacks, rear yard, front yard setbacks, et cetera, which this application doesn't have. But in fairness, at this point in time, until the planner has an opportunity to put on his proofs and opinion, I understand, council, your concern and your concern for the board. I'd like to see if we can get through the engineering a little further and then maybe circle back to those concerns.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's a concern, and I just don't want to waste everybody's time. The other variable that I'm thinking is we have 6 members tonight. We didn't say it publicly. We spoke beforehand.
Yes,
It's a D, you need 5 votes. So
Correct.
one of my concerns in that regard is you have the right to reserve to have a full complement of members. This case has a life, not through any fault of yours.
right.
It's been carried quite a few times. There is some public here as well. But what I don't want to see and set up, it's not going to be voted on or completed tonight, there's no doubt, jumping
Right.
right to that issue. I don't like to tee up too much information for board members that aren't here that then have to go to try to review and certify to be able to even participate in the continuation date. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves in that regard.
And I understand that, and that's a valid concern, and in fairness to our client, the applicant, that's one of the reasons we were carried previously on a similar concern because of being able to have enough board members, and there's no guarantee the next hearing will have enough board members either, or the next one. At some point, we'll either have to pull the trigger, or we're going to have to hope that, we could drive and pick everybody up and nobody has any plans
No,
elsewhere.
understand, and I'm not drawing fault to anybody, but
Yeah.
the difference in my mind with the applicant-driven adjournments in the past, not only the lack of members, I think that was only once,
Right, but we
just
did
before the holidays.
renotice too, if you recall. We renoticed when there was a conflict for you, council, and that renotice was actually just done in December.
But what has happened, driven by the applicant, is there has been changes to the plans. It's not
Yes.
simply that this is being adjourned, because the board's not here. We have a full, and I didn't even mark the original submission because it's changed.
Right.
The renotice probably was legitimate in that regard, quite frankly, and over abundance of caution, better that we renotice, quite frankly. I don't know if there's objectors out there or not, but just from all our perspective, applicant and board, notice is the cornerstone of what we do. So I'm comfortable that it had to be renoticed. I know there's an expense and a delay.
No, we weren't saying it that way, council. I was just saying it hasn't been carried as many times as you might recall because we did do the renotice.
With the renotice. Okay,
in
that's fair.
December. That's all I was pointing out with that. And I would just make the comment that the applicant hasn't been, just carrying to carry. Anytime there's been a carry, whether on our side or other sides due to scheduling issues, the applicant has used that every single time to look, explore, work with the professionals and see, as you said, ways to make the application better and
Right.
better and better. So it hasn't
And I don't
been-
doubt that, but, the void that's not being filled tonight as we sit, is a lot of that information we don't have. This
Right.
board doesn't. I imagine some of it is going to come through the microphones tonight, but this issue in particular just struck me as he was testifying, because we were moving on from parking to other site plan issues, which, I just have a concern in that regard. I don't know if any board
Understood.
members or anybody else has a
Understood.
comment on it.
Any board members want to comment?
We only have,
You want to make a comment?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and don't
Go ahead.
want to be rude. Council, I spoke to my clients, is what we'd ask then is one additional carry with no notice, since we did renotice in December. We'll go back to
Carry with
Mr.
no notice.
Denabi or Mr., I'm going to butcher his forename, Mr. Vancia, and ask for clarification on the parking variance issue so that can be resolved before we come back to this board. And
I
if-
think that makes sense.
And if I may, counsel, if there's any other large issue that you already from review would tell us, or direct us to have the engineer address, I'd like to go back to them with the whole wish list if they are unable to come to the meeting, or if the board, scheduling, whatever the case may be, just so
Well-
engineering-wise.
I mean, the difference in zoning board as compared to planning is we normally don't have the engineer here.
No, understood, that's why I'm saying.
I reacted to it because the way the testimony went in is Colliers is wrong and we're right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem, as I said, for this board, because I'm not sure I agree with the engineer or Colliers at this point. 'Cause I need more of information from both of them, as the lawyer.
Right.
And I don't have it, because I'm not in,
And
I
have
wasn't
your
in
own
those.
opportunity to reread the
Right, I didn't
ordinance.
participate in those
Right.
meetings, nor was I consulted, nor was I asked to weigh in on any of it. So I'm sitting here tonight and hearing it for the first time.
Understood.
I mean, I read the report, I assumed that the applicant said, oh yeah, Colliers is right, we're short 2 parking spaces and we need a variance. That's the way I read Colliers' report. And unless Colliers comes back and says, we met with the applicant's engineer and they're right, then this report needs to be amended
Understood.
for this
Understood.
board to be able to vote, and that's my reaction.
Okay.
I mean, were you planning to get a vote tonight with 6? I mean, that's the other variable here. I know it's another consideration for us tonight, and I don't want to waste time not that this is a waste of time. I don't want to go through the process more than once.
Well, the problem is I can't even now answer that because if we're already at this point we are now, I mean, the hope was originally, when we carried to this date, that we would have 7 members here.
Right.
Obviously, life happens. We know that you're all volunteers, and we appreciate your time.
No, we had 7 up until shortly before the meeting, so I think it might have been illness-driven, unfortunately, which,
Understood.
We have
and
zero
an illness
control over.
here. That's why he keeps stepping out with the temperature tonight. But,
yeah, no, we had
with
9 last week, so I mean, it's,
Understood. You know, but the other issue was, I didn't know timing-wise with board cutoff of testimony, if I would even get to the point between the professionals, that I'd even be to the point of possibly calling for a vote or not. You know, so I can't even, at this point, hindsight's 20/20.
yeah, no, I know, and
The
I'm
answer
hitting you
would
kind of
probably be we
blindsided.
wouldn't have gotten that far.
I appreciate that, because it is a blind side of sorts. I mean, coming from the lawyer especially, I don't like to participate to this level unless something needs to be raised by me, and I felt this was important enough for me to raise.
Understood. So if we may, Mr. Chairman?
Do you have some kind of date in mind, or,
Yeah, I mean, let's start there for you guys, make sure your people are,
yeah, I mean,
I know we're looking at March, right? Because I'm already here on March 4th for something other than this.
yeah, it's,
What date did you?
March 18th, March 25th?
I know March 25th doesn't work, right? Hold on.
mark that down. We're going to adjourn tonight's meeting. We're going to carry it to continued hearing on a date that we give and carry with no notice.
Good for you? Good for you? Okay, March 25th it is.
Okay, I'm going to,
we're clear, Rosemary.
March 25th.
Anthony, who is the board secretary, not only the zoning officer,
Yes,
will follow up based on tonight's testimony to ensure that we either get a written response, yes, they're right and we're okay with it, or no, they're wrong and here's why. If we need to subpoena him here, we could arrange that if needed, but I think in the first instance, we need an answer.
Him, but if you like, Anthony, Mr. Manuzzo, sorry.
That's okay. That's quite all right.
I will send you over that section of the ordinance and just kind of recap conversations that our team had regarding the DT, because we did ask for clarity on the ordinance previously, so.
And
Okay.
put it in an email form, and I will make sure that he sees that email, and we have a discussion over it, and then I'll reply back, or I'll have him reply back
That'd be
with
perfect.
like an email.
This is the first session that we actually started, too, so to the
Yes.
extent we have 3 board members not here tonight, they will have the opportunity to at least review the startup, you know, all of whatever it is, almost an hour. That will be certified to have them eligible, so that's at least something I know. 2 are on vacation, so they'll be able to fulfill that service.
All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, unless any board members have reaction to what they've heard, or even questions,
Any comments by any board members at this time?
it looks like an adjournment to March 25th would be in order to supplement again the record.
And carry without notice, right?
Correct.
Okay. So at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting for calendar number 3463, CRF Development LLC. We're going to carry it till March 25th, and it will be without notice. Can I have a motion and a second?
I assume the applicant would waive time constraints to realize the adjournment.
Yes, we consent to be carried for decision to act by March 26th.
So
And if you'd
noted.
like, I can put that in writing to Ms. Abrantes as well.
So noted.
All right, so we will adjourn the meeting, carry with no notice for continued hearing to March 25th, 2026, 7:30 PM.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Little,
Yes.
Mr. Graves,
Yes.
Ms. Ricketts,
Yes.
Mr. Champy.
Yes.
Thank you again.
For the benefit of the public, the meeting will be held on March the 25th in this room at 7:30, and you will get no notice. Just want to make that clear. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?